and I found the great LA housing boom just went bust. LA Herald Examiner. This is the article in 1981. Then we have another one in the 90s. Will LA home prices ever head up? So, when these loans came out, I call them liar loans. When these liar loans came out, I knew this was going to happen. In the first place, buyers paid too much for their homes. Am I correct?
Yes.
It wasn't your fault, but they were competing. Am I correct?
Yes.
So I want you to understand what happened when they bought and closed escrow. When they bought their property, it was worth $650 because that's what they appraised it for, and that was over what they had it listed. Before they moved in, that property went down to $550. Just like your automobile, when you buy a new one, what happens when you drive it out? That's what happened in 2000. And another thing, when the interest rate changed on them, now their payment is higher. Am I correct? Now they can't make the payment, right? Well, they couldn't even make the payment on the liar loan. So when it adjusts, guess what happens? They call you for help. Am I correct? Well, you talk about maybe they could refi. That's the first thing that comes into their mind. They could refi. But how can you refi a home that they bought, you owe $650, and now it's worth $500? So that was out, right? So now you say, well, let's try a short sale. Am I correct? You see, I told you a phone was going to go off. Where'd it come from? Oh, who's guilty? Wait a minute, I hope I turned mine off.
Yours did the last time.
Oh, I did? Oh, I haven't turned mine off. You see? Oh, I have it loud.
What's your number?
Okay. So I knew this was going to happen. And according to the movies that I've been seeing and what I've been reading, the big boys knew this was going to happen. They knew it. So that's why we have a mess today. How long is it going to take to get out of this mess? My opinion is another 5 years. That's my opinion. Maybe some of you have different opinions. Anybody have a different opinion?
Could be longer.
Could be longer, yes, it could be longer. So again, we're going to be here. And the things that I see in short sales is real estate agents do not understand how to do a short sale. They think they do, but guess what? They get themselves in trouble. I've seen it happen so many times. I'm going to start with the FDIC loss share agreement. How many of you understand what that is? Okay, let me ask you this. How many of you have done short sales? I'm going to ask a question. How many of you understand the FDIC loss share agreement? If you're doing short sales, you should understand it. FDIC loss share agreement. I know back there you can't see. That's why I put it here, so you guys could come to the front. So don't blame me that you can't see it. I'm going to give you an example with One West Bank. This was a true short sale. I'm going to tell you what happened. One West Bank bought who? IndyMac. Why would a bank buy non-performing assets from a bank that's going under?
Loan guarantee.
Loan guarantee and benefits. Let me tell you and show you how it works. Original loan are $485,200. One West Bank bought it from IndyMac at a 30% discount, so they paid $334,600. That's what they paid. Original loan $485,200. They bought it for $334,660. Now, they got a short sale for $241 net. $241. Well, the way the loss share agreement FDIC works is FDIC guarantees One West Bank that they're only going to lose 20% on a short sale, a foreclosure, or a deed in lieu. That they're only going to lose 20% because they're going to cover the other 80%. How do they do this? Well, their short sale net was $241. They bought it for $334, so they have a loss. Am I correct? But they don't base the loss on the loan that they paid for. They base it on the original loan. So you deduct $241 from $485,200. Their total loss is $244,200. That's what they lost. FDIC has guaranteed them that they're going to pay them 80% of that loss of $244,200, which is $195,360, plus the short sale $241. They made a total of $436,360 on a loan that they paid $334.
Oh, wow.
So deduct how much they made. They made $101,760 on this short sale. Plus, this is going to get you angry. They got the seller to sign an unsecured note for $75,000. Did they collect? I don't know that. But let's assume they collected. One West Bank made $176,760 on that short sale of $241. Somebody asked me this. You guys have heard this before. Some banks are offering up to $30,000 for the homeowner to move, right? Have you heard that?
Yeah.
It's happening. Somebody asked me, where are the banks getting that money? Well, how much did they make? If they pay $30,000, they still make money, right? That's the way it works. And this only applies to loans that they bought from other banks. That is called the FDIC loss share agreement. Well, how did I find this out? How many of you have gone to a short sale class and they talk about this? I bet nobody talks about it because they don't know how it works. I'm going to show you where I got this information. How many of you have gone to a wedding and then you sit at a table with strangers? You don't know them, right? If you're like me, you're going to meet everybody in less than 5 minutes. I like to meet everybody. So I met this gentleman named Scott. And I said, Scott, how you doing? My name is Joe. Who do you know here? What party do you know, the groom or the bride? So you know the way it starts, right? And I said, Scott, what kind of work do you do? He says, Joe, if I tell you, you wouldn't understand. I said, try me. Well, this is what I do, Joe. I put values on non-performing assets that banks are going to sell to other banks. And I report that value to the banks that are going to buy those loans. Do I understand what he does?
Yeah. Hello.
I said, Scott, can I sit next to you? Oh, by the way, he became my son-in-law. And I would like to have him as a guest speaker, but he worked for a company that they got to get him the okay to talk about this. But this is what banks will not tell you. And your little booklet on page 19, I don't want you to read it right now, page 19 and 21. And if you notice, page 20 is blank. I wonder why page 20 is blank. So you can put this down. See how easy I make it for you? But I bet only a few put this down, right? If somebody comes and asks you, especially a seller, I heard of the FDIC loss share agreement. How does it work? Well, you have your notes, right? You know how to explain it. But if you don't have your notes, you can't explain it. And guess what? You're gonna look what? Like a professional? You want me to go over it? Anybody want me to go over it?
Yes.
Okay. Pay attention. One West Bank bought IndyMac. They bought IndyMac. They bought their non-performing assets, which are their loans. Okay? Original loan IndyMac had is $485,200. Yes?
Is that the balance or the original loan amount?
That's the balance.
That's the balance. That's what I want to know.
So they bought it at a 30% discount. They bought it for $334,600. They didn't pay 100%, right?
But they're insured on the face value.
Yes. But here it is. One West Bank gets a short sale of $241,000 net to them after all expenses. So, from $241 to the loan that they paid at $334, they have a loss, right? But they don't calculate the loss on what they paid. They calculate the loan at $485, the loss. So let's deduct your short sale from this $485,200, gives you a loss for $244,200. That's the loss. Now, FDIC tells One West Bank, don't worry about it. We will pay you 80% of that loss. 80% of that loss is $195,360. Plus the net of $241 in the short sale, they made a total of $436,360 on a loan that they paid $334. Well, let's see how much money they made. Let's deduct what they paid on what they made. They made $436,360. They bought it for $334. They made $101,760. Plus, they had the homeowner sign an unsecured note for $75,000. I don't know if they're going to collect on it, but let's assume they collected. They made a total of $176,760 on this short sale. How many of you did not know that? See, you learned something. That is called the FDIC loss share agreement. As a matter of fact, if you go into the website, you could find the agreements between FDIC and a lot of banks. Bank of America, they sign an FDIC loss share agreement. One West Bank. This only applies to loans that banks bought from somebody else. It doesn't apply to their own loans. Alrighty? Any questions on this?
Go over the $75,000 again.
An unsecured note that they're losing money. The bank saying, I'm losing money, Mr. Seller. I will approve this short sale if you sign an unsecured note for $75,000.
So no personal guarantee on the note? Or?
No special guarantee. It could be
How's that
unsecured.
help the bank on their
They try to collect.
margins? I mean,
Watch what happens. How many? This is a big mistake real estate agents do. How many of you have heard this from a lender? We will approve your short sale, but we want your homeowner to sign an unsecured note. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
I hope you never get a homeowner sign that unsecured note, because you just put him in a lawsuit. Watch. It's a purchase money deed of trust. The only thing they could do is foreclose on that property. Am I correct? They can't go after him because it's a purchase money. But now that the seller signed an unsecured note, how do you collect on that unsecured note?
Any way you can.
Court. So now you put him in a lawsuit. I never, and this is me, and I'm not giving you legal advice, I never get my seller sign anything. Never. Oh, by the way, this is really going to get you. Where does this money come from? Who?
FDIC, taxpayers.
Okay. Say it loud so they could hear it.
Taxpayers.
The taxpayers. Alrighty? That's that one. Something else that I see real estate agents getting in trouble with is Mars Law. How many of you have heard of the Mars Law? Well, maybe you didn't hear me. How many of you have heard of the Mars Law? How many of you have done short sales this year? And you haven't heard of the Mars Law? You know what the penalties are if you violate it? $11,000 a day to $16,000 a day, and they're coming after realtors that violate it. Well, what is the Mars Law? Well, the Mars Law rule came into effect January the 31st of this year. Mars aims to promote consumer protection by establishing these laws or rules. Alright? Does the Mars Law apply to real estate agents? Yes. Right now, yes. I don't know what I'm doing in this class here, but I'm going to tell you something. How many of you have in your cards short sale specialists? That applies to you. Okay? Even if you don't have that in your cards, if you help somebody do a short sale, that law applies to you. Is it important for real estate agents to know that law? Is it? Well, how come I find that a lot of real estate agents do not know that law? Why is it?
Negligence.
Negligence. If you tell somebody that in court, the judge, what are they going to tell you? Yeah.
Liable.
You have to understand the laws that are happening today. Yesterday I did a class and I talked a little bit about the Mars Law. And one of the real estate agents told me I closed 10 short sales this year. After January the 31st, they said yes. Are you familiar with the Mars Law? No. You know what the penalties are? If you don't comply? $11,000 to $16,000 a day. What do I do now? I said, do you go to church? Start praying. Turn to page in your booklet to page 22 and 23. These are the disclosures that you have to provide the homeowner under the Mars Law. And it's pretty strict. let me see, I'm going to get the one that goes to the listing. The one that goes to the listing is page 23. You got to give this disclosure to your seller. So what are you telling the seller when you give him this disclosure? Well, let's read. You may stop, I don't care what type of listing you have, exclusive right to sell. You may stop doing business with us at any time. In other words, can I back out of the listing? What it says there, yeah. And number 2, you may accept or reject the offer of the mortgage assistance we obtained from your lender or servicer. If you reject the offer, you do not have to pay us. If you accept the offer, you would have to pay us, put the commission there. Joe Ramos, number 5, is not associated with any governmental or any other office, is not approved by the government or your lender. 6, even if you accept this offer and use our services, your lender may not agree to change your loan. If you stop paying your mortgage, you could lose your home and damage your credit rating. Now, this came into effect really in December of last year. But it became law January the 31st of this. Okay? Now, how many of you gave this disclosure to your seller when you did the short sale?
Is this a statutorily required wording, or may you do this just on standard operating procedure?
You use this document.
It's a car form.
That's a car form. And what does CAR do for you? They protect you from lawsuits. Yes?
2 quick questions. So when you get this filed, does that mean that they could theoretically terminate the listing anytime?
That's what it says.
Okay, and how about this thing about number 4? It says if you accept the offer, you will have to pay us. They don't really pay us. Isn't the bank who pays us?
The seller pays you. You don't know how the short sale works?
No, the seller doesn't pay us.
The seller pays you. Who's the owner?
The seller. But,
Let me define a short sale so you could understand.
right,
There's not enough money for the seller to pay the payments, right?
right,
So what does the lender do? Reduce
right.
what you own so the seller could have enough money to pay the cost.
Okay.
In the closing statement, it says the seller paid it.
Okay.
The lender doesn't have to do anything with that. They just lower the price to make sure that the homeowner, you understand it now? Okay. Do you agree with that? Yeah. Who's the owner of the property? Seller is. So who pays the commission? But what does the lender do so the seller can have money to pay the commission? There you go. All right. You know, I'm going to tell you what a short sale is. How many of you have sold a house like this? This sale is contingent on my attorney reviewing the contract. How many, have you? Yeah, I have. That's like a short sale. This sale is subject to a contingent that the lender approves it, right? A short sale is nothing but a regular transaction with another contingency. Okay. Now, this one, on page 22, when you get your short sale approval letter from the lender that they approved the short sale, this has to go with it. It says the same thing. Now, when I heard about this law, I had a feeling, or my feeling was real estate agents weren't going to be included. But somebody made a boo-boo. And they threw you guys in there. Bottom line is, do you have to comply with that law? Definitely. Any questions on the Mars? Yes?
There's actually a third disclaimer that has to be put on all of your promotional and marketing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That the
Yeah.
car hasn't even addressed.
They haven't addressed, but you have to, remember I said, short sale specialist? If you promote short sales, you better comply with it. If you promote short sales, you better comply with it. Okay?
The second document, who do you give this to?
To your seller, when they get the approval letter. Why are they, yes sir?
Is there part of Mars that applies to the buyer, if you're working with a buyer, in addition to the short sale advisory?
They haven't come out with it. I asked CAR the same question, and guess what answer they gave me?
They don't know.
They don't know yet. I would answer like an attorney. I'm not an attorney. It depends. Alrighty. But I'll find out for you. Until then, I have to wait for them to call me. Yes?
Is this a state or federal law?
Federal.
Federal Trade Commission.
It's the Federal Trade Commission.
Is Mars?
Well, would this only apply then to federally insured loans then, or what?
It applies to anything that you're doing short sales. Alright.
Where would they do
That's a Mars. Now, let me ask you this. How many of you have investors that buy short sales? Okay. I'm an investor. I look for short sales. I make offers with all of you. My short sale is accepted, but the lender has to approve it, right? Lender approves it. We close escrow. Did we do anything wrong?
Not yet.
No, we did, because we didn't do what we're supposed to. How many of you have heard of California Civil Code 1695? Only 3 of you? What kind of classes do you get in your office?
Tell us
Okay.
the concept, you know.
This is called the Home Equity Sales Contract Law.
Okay, all right.
Let me tell you when this law applies. A, if the resident is 1 to 4 units. So it doesn't apply to 5 units, right? It doesn't apply to commercial. It applies to 1 to 4 units. Owner occupied. Notice of default has been recorded on the property. The buyer's an investor. He does not intend to occupy the property, so he's called an investor, right?
Yes.
Okay. Civil Code 1695 became law in California in 1978. And I believe CAR just caught up with it about 2004. And I kept hammering them, when are they going to come out with? Okay? Now, look at page... Oh, no, it's in your, this here, on the last page, the HOPA program. It's on the last page. I'm going to read this to you. You don't have one?
No.
Okay. I'm going to read it to you. Agreement subject to civil code. Everybody there? Last page.
What page is that?
Last page.
Last page.
Last page. Anything after that? There's no more pages. I'm going to read it to you. Everybody ready?
Yes.
The attached purchase agreement is to be used when the buyer offers to purchase a residential dwelling containing 1 to 4 units and one which the owner occupies, and a notice of default has been recorded against the property. The purchase is subject to Civil Code 1695 through 1695.17. If certain provisions of this code section are violated, investor may be responsible for actual damages and attorney's fees and costs incurred by seller, a civil penalty up to $2,500 and a fine up to $25,000. Investor may be subject to imprisonment for not more than 1 year. And number 3, the transaction may be rescinded by the seller